Hello, hello, hello. Assalamu alaikum, everybody who's tuned into PTB World and are watching World this morning alongside the very amazing, the very talented, the very fabulous Shazad Khan. I hope everybody out there is perfect. We're opening our windows into 46 different countries to say our hellos, to say our good mornings, and to disseminate positive vibes to everybody who's out there. Because I want everybody to be happy, smiley, chirpy, and I want everybody to be dedicated towards what they want to achieve in life. And it is very important. Every single day when you wake up is actually your next chance to be amazing, to be superb, and to be fabulous. But ladies and gentlemen, other than that, today the date is 20th of February over here in Islamabad. The temperatures are not that cold, but it is since it's 12 degrees. But other than that, for all those people who intend to travel today, after 10 a.m. in the morning, it might rain over here in Islamabad and in the hilly areas too as well. So I want everybody to be perfect. And then other than that, in Chicago, it's -1. So for everybody who's actually planning to go to Chicago or are already in Chicago, I think you probably need to wear warm clothes. Then in Birmingham, it's somewhat around 7 degrees. It's very cold, it's very chilly. So please make sure to look after yourselves. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start with a very important message. And that message is that whenever, we are out, or we are working, we are somewhere else, we're sitting down with somebody, we are dining in, whatnot. There are these basic etiquettes of being a human. So this is how I might start. That obviously everybody is going to actually expect that you're going to be more disciplined, you're going to actually listen to them, talk to them, be in a conversation, don't argue and whatnot. And I think that all of these values and morals are very important in life because they actually shape you the type of a person you are, and then that's how people actually take you as well. So I mean, for somebody who's not even actually going to greet me or shake hands with me, what kind of image do you think I'm going to take off that person? So this is where we actually need to be very cautious about that. People, they do judge. If we say that people do not judge, this is something which is very wrong. And if you want them to judge in a better way, please make sure that you're full of morals and values because they shape our culture. But now, coming down to what we are actually going to talk about, since it's 20th of February today, ladies and gentlemen, today is a very important day. Today is actually the World Day of Social Justice. And whenever we talk about social justice, ladies and gentlemen, but first let me tell you, back in 2007, our International Labour Organization, which definitely comes under the United Nations, adopted a declaration where they said that the international community actually need to work toward poverty eradication, gender equality, and all of these other things which actually are going to make this globe a peaceful place to live. Now the bigger question, ladies and gentlemen, over here is that, for example, when I wake up every single day, I've got different agendas in my head. I have different motives, and I want different sort of achievements from anybody, who might be around me. And to achieve those things, one way or the other, I think that the international community, what they do is that they feel more inclined towards achieving what their goals are, not respecting how it may have an impact or an effect onto the other neighboring countries as well. For example, we talk about climate change. Now, there are a lot of people who are actually adding on to the pollution, but then there are a lot of countries which are not. But then at the same time, those countries who are actually adding on to the pollution, they're actually causing our part of the world where the ozone layer is depleting. Now, for that particular reason, I think everybody needs to work. Everybody needs to help each other. And this is why we are humans. This is why we're actually known as social beings as well, because we really need to communicate. We need to talk to each other. We need to see each other. I mean, somebody who actually lives by themselves, I don't think that they can live for long. So, and I don't want anybody to be alone too as well. But it's a global thing, and we want this to be under discussion today. And ladies and gentlemen, whenever we observe a day, it's not that it's one day. It needs to be 365 days a year and 24/7, obviously, because what happens is that we do tend to forget, but then these days remind us it's just a ripple effect. You throw a pebble into the water, the ripples come back to you. This is what it is. But first, before I introduce our guest to you, we've got a few reports to share with you guys. Let's start with that. Good morning. This is World Social Justice Day.
Okay, this one's for Gabby.
procrastinate until you do that. So, ladies and gentlemen, on my right-hand side, very apt guest, for this gentleman, I think there's only one thing which I'm going to say. Since he's actually the person who knows the law inside out as well. He's been working for a lot of other agencies as well, which we'll definitely be mentioning. But I think that he's got a proper grip on, how the law needs to work. And then, at the same time, he was the guy who actually gave me the idea that there's social justice and then there's natural justice. And we as Muslims, I think we believe in natural justice too as well. On my right-hand side, ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by somebody who's a lawyer. He's the ex-legal consultant at NAB. He was, and he is none other than Mr. Saibzada Muzaffar Ali. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
for inviting me in your program.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. And alongside Mr. Saibzada, ladies and gentlemen, one of my very favorite guests over here in the studios today. She's a social activist, and she's very active too as well. For the last 2 decades, she's been on her toes, and now she thinks that she's so contented that she actually wants to give this information and piece of knowledge to all those other people who are actually following her footsteps as well. She's none other than Ms. Afshan Tehseen. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Good morning, walaikum assalam, and thank you very much for welcoming us in the most pleasant manner in the morning.
Thank you very much. It's always wonderful to have you, but let's get the conversation started. So, Mr. Saibzada, I'm going to start my conversation with you. How would you highlight the importance of this day, and why do you think that observance of such a day is very important for the international community?
I would like to, first of all, make it clear what
Sure.
does social justice mean.
Sure, go ahead.
Actually, social justice is basically, it's the relationship between people and its nation state. It's a relationship. It's
Yes.
a right relationship, legal relationship.
Yeah.
And if you can see the definition of that social justice, it seems that it's a political concept.
Okay.
It's a philosophical concept which show that everyone has a right to access to health, wealth, opportunities, and justice.
Well-being as well. Yes.
Well-being as well. So you see, the state makes the laws for the people, so that everybody has their fundamental rights.
Yeah.
Likewise, in Pakistan, we have the Constitution of Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Exactly.
We have a lot of articles which support and which saves the rights of the persons, citizens of Pakistan. Likewise, every country, they have a constitution. So the point in the alarming position is whether these concepts are being followed by whether the governments of those countries which have made these articles, which have made the law, which have made the constitutions to protect and save the rights of the citizens, whether they are being followed or not.
Okay.
Yes, and in that sense, we can say in Pakistan, like I told you that we have a constitution of Pakistan which says that yes, you have a right for security.
Yeah.
Yes, that is Article 9 of the Constitution of Pakistan. Then you have an Article 10 which says that everybody should have an access for justice. He has to be protected for his unnecessary arrest and detention.
Exactly.
A fair trial has to be given to him. So in that case, that is Article 10A. Normally in these days, there is everybody who is seeking justice from the courts, they are always agitating Article 10A, that I should be given a fair trial.
Yeah.
Being a citizen, every citizen, that his rights are cooperated and protected, that yes, you have to be given a fair trial.
Yeah.
But there are some statutes. Unfortunately, we have some statutes which doesn't even say about sending a notice to a aggrieved person.
Yeah.
Principle of natural justice is collided with the social justice.
Okay.
In that sense, if you see, if somebody is to be tried, yes, he has to be given a notice. He has to be given a fair trial. He has to be given an opportunity for legal representation.
Yeah.
If you fail by giving this, that is the reason why the superior courts then they intervene.
Okay.
And they struck down each and everything which is passed in absentia. So nobody should be condemned 100.
Okay.
This is the basic concept.
Okay, I'll definitely come back to that, but let me move on to Ms. Afshan over here. So now for you, how do you think that you would like to highlight the importance of this day where we're actually talking about people being equal and given equal rights?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to say I'm very lucky to, have got the opportunity to talk about all this. As we know, broadly speaking, there are two types of justice. One is divine justice, which is exercised by God, Almighty Allah. And the other one is social justice, which is exercised by His beings on earth. And I must say this social justice is exercise of equality of opportunities in terms of social, financial, ethical, and all those things which make you above all social injustices or imbalance of power.
Exactly.
And it is very important because to coexist on this earth with peace and harmony, it is very important there has to be some, global, international, bigger framework in which the whole world have to coexist and whole world have to comply and whole world have to operate.
Exactly.
And there are certain instruments. For example, United Nations General Assembly has provided us, as you have very rightly mentioned, this ILO declaration by 2007. So there are certain standards which have been set internationally and then definitely linked with nationally. If they are not in sequence, it will be very difficult. It has been very difficult, and in the coming future, where you have just mentioned such threats as war, as climate change and other calamities and other, friction between nations, it will be very difficult to survive on this planet. So it is very, very important that the world now, it's growing bigger in terms of population, in terms of other disastrous things, they carry along, in terms of power. So there has to be some framework in which they have to comply, follow, so that this earth can continue and, cater to
and
the
so that we
people
can
of
even
this
prosper
earth.
in future too as well. Our future generations, we give them or we leave them behind with, a peaceful environment, which is very important. And since you mentioned this, so I think I'm going to ask this as well. Do you think that social justice is an underlying principle for the coexistence of nations on this globe?
Yes, of course, it is. You see, likewise, I told you that Article 10A was added in the Constitution just to secure that everybody should be given a fair trial. In Europe, way back, few years back, European Convention on Human Rights, they added Article 6A regarding the fair trial. But that doesn't mean that the common law of no country has those concepts, but it was actually added as a substitute to it, so that everybody should be given a fair trial. So globally, it's being followed, and in Pakistan, yes, where there are now the laws are being amended. But as I told you before, that there are still some laws which doesn't give you that statutory right, a legal right, fundamental right, which is protected. But now, in that case, you see, there's a law which says that every public functionary, whosoever is deciding, he has to give a fair and justice and legal judgment, speaking order. He has to give a reasoned judgment. And in this case, there are many judgments given by the Honorable Supreme Court, which has turned down the actions by the public functionaries, which has not covered those areas by giving a fair trial. So social justice, basically the natural justice principles are to be followed for social justice. If they are not followed, if there is discrimination in religion, if there is discrimination in gender, in discrimination in any kind of racism, so you see those countries, they fall for that.
Okay, this is fine. So now, since we have established the base too as well, and I think it's very strong, there's this one thing which I want to ask, and that is that when we talk about nations and the nations coexisting, I think what we need to do first of all is that probably look into those nations, whether there's poverty eradication, whether there's gender equality, whether there's social justice, whether there's access to justice to people or not. So let's come down to Pakistan. So Mr. Afsha, I'm going to start with you as well. So we live in a country where 40% of the population is actually below the poverty line. So let's start with poverty eradication. How do you think that we are even going to reach a level where alongside the international standards, we are going to match our shoulders and we'll be like, okay, we have achieved that?
This, lack of social justice or absence of social justice is directly linked with all these nuisances. And I must say the repercussions are, as you have yourself mentioned, the poverty, prevailing poverty, social exclusion, violence, discrimination, and all such bad factors which prevail. And until and unless we include it as a inclusion policy, the social justice in overall states framework in the name of good governance, the legislation, institutional frameworks, and they do exercise it at the state level where everybody who has access to apply. For example, if there is any employment issues of employment, if the people don't have no access to such frameworks available at their doorstep at the country and national level, definitely such manifestations, as you have yourself mentioned, poverty is the topmost. and violence is the topmost. We will be seeing more frequently such manifestations. So social justice is the basic unit starting from the household till the state level.
Exactly.
Even if you start from your single household level, if the social justice does not prevail there, you will see a very disrupted family.
Exactly.
They will be, falling victims of all sorts of,
Problems, yes.
effects of lack of social justice. And same applies everywhere. And where at one hand the principles of humanity apply, where each individual and each person as a society has to play its role. On the other hand, state is, bound to provide that to its citizen.
Beautiful. Wow. I'm totally flabbergasted upon what Ms. Afshaz actually has to say as well, because I think it's right on point. And this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to actually talk about initiatives which can be taken at the grassroots level. I mean, for example, you told us about household. Now, the type of behavior parents have with their sons is very different from what they have with their daughters. This is the first social injustice within our own community, let alone what we need to talk about international communities. What initiatives do you think need to be taken on the grassroots level so that we believe that we are actually progressing as a community where social justice prevails? Wow.
Starting with it, I think the awareness is the most important factor.
Yeah.
You see, people, likewise, I told you, the education level in Pakistan is not at par with the other countries.
Yeah.
So awareness of
Not
laws,
even close though.
Not even close though.
Yeah.
But the awareness, it should be there. Whenever the law is made, people are not aware for that. Few segments they come to know, but they are dealt with that law. So in that sense, the social justice, I think the government should make a policy so that it is publicly made clear what are the rights of the people. So if somebody, like nobody knows, if somebody holds a property and his property is acquired by any agency, what does he do? He says, oh, that is the government has done this. But he should be knowing that he has a legal remedy for that. He can approach a court if some
share
unfair
that with
has been
people,
done.
so let's educate people. Go ahead, look into the camera, tell them what went wrong and what they can possibly do.
You see, in those senses where your property has been acquired, and there was the Section 4 is a notification under the Land Acquisition Act. The government has a right to acquire any property. So if your property is acquired, it comes under that area. You have just to not only to see, okay, that they have acquired. No, you have to see whether they have acquired it legally, whether it was under that the land which was being acquired is the part of the land under the notification, and if it is not, then you have to approach a court. And whether the compensation they have taken as a market value for that, whether they are paying that market value or not, and if it not, you can approach the court. You can just make it clear that I am not being compensated fairly, justly, reasonably, and in that sense the court are going to be deciding your fate. But in that sense, that awareness should be created. The government has this authority to create and to tell through media, through social media, that your rights under social justice.
I think that was a great example too as well. But other than that, now what I want to ask is that, for example, we do have barriers like, age, race, disability, and problems like these within our own communities and within our own societies. Do you think that if we remove these barriers, that it will help in gaining social justice? And how do we actually remove these barriers? For example, we go to so many different buildings. We do not even see a ramp for people who are actually disabled or people with special needs as well. We're not even an inclusive society. So where do we get started from? I mean, we're more than 70 years old, and now is the time when we're actually going to think about it. I think we're too late.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to elaborate that list because it is very important. We should be mentioned that factors, those factors which contribute to social justice, as you mentioned, it's on the basis of gender, on the basis of disability, on the basis of sex, ethics, religion, culture, social norms, behaviors, wealth, and violence, and any other discriminatory behavior among society. Interfaith harmony, is one of the intra conflicts among the communities. And the list is even broader. I must say there is a very mass level social change required to address this, in which we have to set certain standards in society, and we have to use tools like media, use tools like role models, use tools like writings, columns, and this has to be addressed, as I mentioned before, from the household, then educational institutes, because when it is a norm that whatever as a human being it's must to cater to have certain values to exercise along with the academics, and it should be there, and it should be part of the even operational policies of professional work also. So we have to exercise, we have to adopt, society has to give value to all these factors, because at the childhood level, if we don't teach this to a child when he or she grows, then you cannot blame them, because first we have to invest in our human beings from the very childhood level, and later on, as I said, there are lots of organizations for social change, those who are working. We have to, I think, magnify, we have to increase the volume of such interventions which address such ethnicity, discrimination, disability, and all sorts of issues. Otherwise, definitely these factors not only contribute in terms of social cohesion, but also contribute bad economic effects on the society, and a very mentally negative nation is produced. We affect negatively the social fabric of society. So definitely it is something which has to be a top priority for a positive and healthy society.
Exactly, and that's great too as well. But ladies and gentlemen, before we head out towards a short break, there's this one thing which I wanted to mention, and I kind of have a feeling that this is what it is. So, on a governmental level, I think that the relationships are very different, from nation to nation. But on a societal level, I think whenever we travel the world, we get to see a lot of people. And, for example, they might be representing their country, but then at the same time, if we see or if we observe on a governmental level, we see that the relationships are different. But if you get to see the people of those countries, the way they sit down with you, the way they shake hands with you, it's hard to believe that, there's no problem at all. So, I mean, where is the problem? How do we actually get to that? How do we get to the root of that? How do we get it out of our system and be better people within this world so that we are very peaceful? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a short break. Good morning.
Book is life. Book is hope. And book is light for the future.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For everybody who just got tuned into PTV World, you watching World this morning alongside Shahzad Khan. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm in conversation with Sahibzada Muzaffar Ali, who's a lawyer and an ex-legal consultant at NAB. And then alongside him, we have been joined by Ms. Afshan Tahseen, who's actually a social activist. She's doing great. And, so far, whatever we have conversed, I think she's done a great job. She's done justice to that too as well. And I think that for people like us who actually sit down on television, it's our responsibility to make sure that social justice prevails within our words too as well. For example, if I'm only going to talk about the male gender, I think that'll be unfair on my behalf. So wherever I use the term his, I think I need to use the term her too as well. This is where we become inclusive. Now, this is very important. But before going towards the break, there's this one thing which I told everybody out there as well, and that was that on governmental level, it looks like as if, there's chaos, there's a hegemony, there are problems, and there are obviously, because every nation has their own objectives to be achieved. But on an individual level, we do not really see those problems. We do not come across those problems when we sit down with people from other nations or other countries too as well. Why is that so, is my question for Mr. Sahibzada.
Likewise, I told you at the level of government, this is a democratic. As if you ask them, they say this is a democracy.
Yeah.
You have a right or to freedom of right to speak. You can speak against.
Yeah.
But the point is, the concept behind the social justice is basic, in my opinion, is that you should be knowing not only your rights, your access to the justice, but the judiciary, they have also taken a very big stance these days.
Okay.
You see, recent judgment which has been passed, the Supreme Court has laid down the principle that justice should not be done, it should be seen to be done.
Okay.
And it should be done even heaven falls. So in those concepts, as you see, these has to be followed. And the government, they have to see where are the gray areas. Yes, I can show you, because if you go for a person who is doing a job, and one day, one fine morning, he has been told that you go back. He says, why I'm giving this notice, and why you're throwing me out? Why you're firing me? So they say, because of the reason that you have been shown a misconduct, you have been charged. So there should be some gist of allegation that should be shared to him before taking such decisions.
Exactly.
Normally, government should look into those laws with the gray areas where the people are being, penalized for that thing.
Yes, exactly. I think
This is the legislative authority of the government. Legislation is done by the government. In present scenario, you see, the government has taken good step. Likewise, a few days before, that we have got released 2,100 prisoners from Saudi Arabia.
Exactly.
So these are the steps which has to be taken by the government.
Exactly.
So I think we support those actions. We support those actions of the government which takes those steps. But I still believe is that you have to be heard properly. You have to be heard legally with a representative.
And you obviously have to be vocal too as well. And for that, I think I'm going to, after Allah, I'm going to thank our Premier Imran Khan Sahib as well for, actually raising your concerns about, for all those people who've been, who were actually in the Saudi jails too as well. So congratulations to everybody who's coming back home, first things first, because people have been in jails for more than 5 years as well. But in the first place, okay, so they are prisoners and whatnot, they were, now they're coming back home. But one way or the other, I think that's where social justice comes in again. Why were they in prison in the first place? This is something which we need to talk about, we need to dissect. But since we're short of time, so we cannot do that. So probably we'll do it. But other than that, I think that we need to work towards human dignity and human development. Because if we are going to work towards dignity, I think people are going to grasp that value, those morals we are talking about. And if we are going to invest in human development, only then we'll be able to do that. Do you agree to that? And if yes, how do we do that?
Look, it is very important, and I more than 100% agree to that, because internationally all the nations in the world will have to comply, and they have to be accountable towards social justice through their established frameworks in the name of declarations and any other instruments. And I must say, if in the absence of such instruments, and if nations don't comply, there are 100% chances of frictions and wars between the countries. I would like to mention our neighboring occupied Kashmir, our neighboring state occupied Kashmir, where we can see atrocities, violence, and lots of such discrimination, violence through gender, and lack of plebiscite and use of pellets, and where there is a genocide at a mass level. And this is only happening because we are not exercising all those instruments in the name of social justice. Like we have to exercise. The United Nations General Assembly has to implement all those commitments which they do, and we have to then enable people to have their right to exercise to live in a country free of such violence, and have exercised their freedom and independence, and have the right to vote and live in an independent democratic country. So this is very important, and unless and until the whole world, the nations, they don't comply, definitely we will be moving towards more hostilities. And now that every this nuclear power and bombing and sale of lots of arms and ammunitions. You know, those countries who are a bit more powerful, they have to then use it, mishandle it in their best interest. So that's where social justice has to be highlighted, adopted, and the nations and their heads and all those instruments have to be made accountable to ensure peace and harmony on earth.
I truly agree to that. But one last question before we wrap up this segment, Mrs. Saibzada, and that is that, for example, she actually spoke about that how social justice needs to be a part of our system. Now, half of the time I call it, there was a different term for this in the book which I read, but I'm going to refer to it as the crowd effect, probably. So what happens is that if probably I'm going back home, there are 20 people standing on the road, I might just stop my car, look at what's happening, and then move on. Why do we do it in the first place? So what we're doing is that, for example, if we see or probably share examples from countries which are developed or are the first world countries as well. So what happens is that we try to follow their pathways, may them be morally correct or not. Why do we do that?
Actually, this is basically a failure of an authority who has vested with the authority of rights under the law, and he's not exercising his authority in a lawful manner.
Yeah.
This is its failure. It's a failure of the authorities. You see, our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, during his last address, specifically told that now a father who has done something wrong, a sin, his son will not be penalized. Yeah. And if a son has done something wrong, if a son has murdered, his father will not be penalized for that.
Yeah.
This was teaching of Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. Yeah. But what is happening? If the father dies, the authorities, they arraign his son, that you are responsible. This is not his sin. The father has done this. The crime has been committed by his father. Yeah. But these are basically, this is the abuse of your authority. Exactly. The investigation agencies. So wherever we go and we find those people who have been aggrieved of those abused by the authorities, by their what they are doing. So in that sense, we have to speak for it. Exactly. It is not only the job of the courts that they intervene, and this is basically the government should see the agencies who are not exercising their authority in a proper rightful manner. They have to make them accountable now. Exactly. This is the time.
Exactly.
When the NAB was made in 1999, and the purpose and the preamble, whatever the law is made, it is always in the preamble. Exactly. It was made applicable for all the person to make accountable whosoever who has committed acts of corruption and corrupt practices. But the thing is, there is a lot of things to be told just because of the time constraint. I would just focus on this, that the authorities exercising the powers, they should also exercise fairly, justly, so that social justice is not done by them. Exactly. And people should be aware about
exactly.
that.
Thank you very much for being with us. It was wonderful to have you guys on the show too as well, and you spoke your heart out. I think this is what is very important as well. But for all those people who are out there, there's this one small message on this day, ladies and gentlemen, and that is that we definitely talk about what the government needs to do. But we tend to forget about what we need to do as individuals. Because if initially, this movement starts from us, where we make sure that the social justice prevails even within our households, because we have a lot of people who work for us, there are people who cook for us, there are people who drive for us. I think that, first things first, we need to set an example at our homes and then actually start talking about what the government needs to do. Please make sure that you look after that social justice so that it prevails within your own household, and then eventually we move on to a greater level where we're actually in a position to talk with other nations that this is what we want to live peacefully. Please make sure that you are an ambassador of social justice. We're going for a short break. Don't go anywhere, because when you guys will come back, there's this one thing which I cannot do justice with, and that is eating fish. I can have it every day. And we're going to talk about the benefits of having fish. Let's do that. Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For everybody who's actually tuned in already, you know that what we were talking about. For all those people who just tuned in, today is World Day for Social Justice as well. We were in conversation with some very apt guests, and they made some very apt points too as well. But before going towards the break, I said that there's this one thing with which I cannot do justice, and that is eating fish. So, and you know, I think that the sole reason why I eat a lot of fish is that, you know, that the chef at my gym actually cooks fish in a very amazing way as well. But to talk about the benefits of having fish, or white meat as we say, we have our very own lifestyle coach, Ms. Lubna Khan Faraz. Hello, good morning, how are you?
Good morning, how are you doing?
Absolutely perfect.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about fish today and the benefits of eating fish. So fish is one of the most healthiest foods out there in the world today, and for many, many good reasons. And like yourself, I'm also a very big fan of eating fish, and not only because it's of the nutrients in there, but also because you can cook it really fast and super easily. So you don't need a lot of ingredients, you don't need a lot of equipment to cook it. You just gotta really fast. You can do it. I'll talk about that towards the end, but let's get towards the benefits of fish. So number one, it's super high in protein, omega-3s, vitamin D, vitamin B, and iodine. So these are all the nutrients that I always talk about being crucial towards your health, that are so important for, your immune system, your inflammation in the body, to bring it down. So obviously you need vitamin D, and actually fish is the most good source of vitamin D dietary wise. So a lot of foods don't actually have vitamin D in them, and that's why we need the sun for it. But fish itself contains a lot of vitamin D, which is why it's excellent. Which is why it is an excellent source of that. Secondly, it lowers the risk of heart disease and brain function as well. Brain dysfunction as well. So I'm like, no, yes, your brain will stop functioning. No, it will help your brain function better, and all those things that we hear as children that consume fish is better for your brain and your eyes, and that is all true. So of course, if you are not a big fish eater, you can supplement it with some omega-3 capsules as well, or I always recommend intaking it once or twice a week minimum. But whenever you do intake fish, I do always say make sure to get a good source of fish, because there's a different type of fish, right? So there is farmed fish, and there is fish that is from freshwater, and there's fish that are from the rivers. So you want to consume the wild caught ones mainly, and not the farm ones, because yes, of course, there are benefits of both, but there is more benefits and more protein and more nutrients in the ones that are obviously from the wild side. So you want to make sure you're getting those. Thirdly, it contains a lot of nutrients that help a lot of development. So here's a common myth. People tend to say that, pregnant women should not be eating fish and it's not good for them, but I like to differ from that. So as long as you're eating fish that's low in mercury, so for example, salmon or trout or sardines, it's actually safe and highly recommended for even pregnant women because of the development of the fetus and the brain development and everything like that. So even for children, you want to eat the fatty fish, the one in low mercury, like the ones I mentioned, like salmon, trout, and sardines, and get away from the high mercury ones like swordfish and mackerel and all of those. And then after that, I want to talk about helping vision. So there's a lot of vision impairment, and we're going towards blindness these days. So common, you see young children with glasses and all of that. So fish is actually something that will help you combat that. Many studies have shown that it can, especially in females, it can show about a 43%. It can lower 43% chances of having macular problems in your eyes and everything like that. So you definitely want to consume fish for those reasons as well. And then also it improves sleep. So Shazad can maybe tell me if that actually works. But yes, if you are somebody who has a very active lifestyle and then you may have trouble sleeping, or if you work out during the evening, if you consume fish, it can actually help you sleep better. And a study that was done I believe about 3 years ago, where they took about 95 middle-aged men who consumed fish about 3 times a week, they actually had a higher, brain rest at sleep, and they also had a better daily functioning as well. So you definitely want to consume fish for that reason. And of course, one important thing that I want to mention as well is that it's very high in antioxidants, and there's an antioxidant called astaxanthin that's very apparent in red or pink salmon. So that's very important for anti-aging, any sun damage to your skin, for your hair, for your nails. So you want to consume all of these fish as well.
Well, that's great, and it's superb too as well. But there's this one concern I have, and that is that since you mentioned that it's going to help you sleep. So our producer in my ear, he just said that if you have a small child at your place, there's nothing which can actually help you sleep too as well. But that was on a lighter note. But how many times can you actually have fish? Probably in a week's time, because my mother was so concerned about me having fish every single day, Do you think that this can be done, or this is not fair with your body to eat fish every single day?
It obviously can be done. I mean, if you look at origins of Asia, like Japan and stuff, like they have seafood all the time. Almost every single meal has some kind of seafood in there. So you can, but obviously you want to have a variety in your whole meal plan that you're having for the week. So I always recommend about 2 to 3 times a week of very good fatty fish. So like, we have rahu here, we have red snapper that's native to us. So your native fish is super important because that's the most fresh kind you will get.
And how many grams of it? I mean,
so
this is
if you're
something
taking a
which
capsule, I recommend 1,000 mg daily.
Okay.
And if you are just starting out with it, then I obviously recommend a little lower, so maybe 500 grams and stuff like that. Even children can supplement with it too. So about 1 to 2 servings a week is good enough.
All right, so since we all know over here in Pakistan, we love to overcook as well. We dredge them into the oil and whatnot.
Yes.
So, and probably, the fish actually loses half of the nutrition which it has. So, the same case is with the vegetables as well.
Yeah.
So does it happen with the fish?
So that's a very good point, and I was going to talk about it, but good, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
So yes, with fish, I definitely want to remind everybody, you don't need to do a lot with it to, use its flavor. Actually, the more masalas and all these spices you put in them, it loses the flavor, and all you're tasting is, the stuff you put all over it. So the best way to cook fish is, just a light, quick stir fry, or you want to bake it, or you want to steam it. That's the real flavors of the fish that you want to taste. So you don't want to deep fry it or something like that. That's going to kill not the nutrients, but yes, of course, the flavors and all the good fatty acids that kind of just burn away. So you want to either you want to bake it, or you want to just quickly pan fry it and consume it with some very fresh herbs, lemon, and like you said, broccoli and all of that, good greens and everything. So you want to have a good variety of it and not just overpower the flavor of the actual fish, right?
And since we've been talking about fish, so I literally feel like having fish right now. And since you mentioned about the original taste of fish, I think when, beneath the skin, when you actually take it out and when you put it in your mouth, there's this watery kind of scent which you get. I mean, that's the flavor of fish I have. What about you? What kind of flavor do you have?
So my favorite fish is salmon, of course. So salmon has a little bit of dry texture, but it has a very different taste if you cook it with some lemon and some rosemary and dill, right? So that's my absolute favorite one. I also like red snapper. That's very native to Pakistan as well. So that's, it tastes really nice with some, tamarind sauce on it or some plum sauce on it. So it's super good. Now I really want to have fish too. So no, you can try cooking fish in so many different ways. It's so easy and so fast. If you're somebody who worked, if you're a working mom, or if you're low on time, even a dad can cook this. Can you make fish?
Yeah, I can
so
make
there
fish.
You go.
No
there
problem,
you go.
no problem.
Yeah,
But it's all right. Thank you very much, Lubna, for being with
pleasure.
us. It was wonderful to be in conversation with you and for all those people. But by the way, what are we doing tomorrow?
Tomorrow, let's leave it to the people. How about people comment on our page about what they want me to talk about and what they want us to discuss about, and we'll talk about that.
Exactly. And to do that, ladies and gentlemen, you can write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of World This Morning. It's down here. Yeah, let me. No, it's beneath my sofa today, so it's somewhere. Yeah, and on Daily Motion and YouTube, it's World This Morning once again. Yes, and the Fabulous Repeat is going to be at 11 p.m. tonight. Till the next time, 1, 2, 3. Good morning. Thank you.